All right, Bianca, thanks so much. And of course, Bianca was there at what started out as a vigil and a peaceful protest there at East Lake Park. And since then, protesters have taken to the streets of downtown Phoenix. And again, most of this has been peaceful, but just recently we have had reports of flashbangs just moments ago being thrown out there on the crowds there from Phoenix police as they try to get a hold and manage these protesters there in the middle of the streets. We're going to head out now to Team 12's Mitch Carr. He continues our coverage tonight at the Arizona State Capitol and at Phoenix Police Department. Now, Mitch, what are you seeing right now around you?
Good evening. Here's the situation on the ground as we see it right now. If you look over my right shoulder, this is Phoenix Police Headquarters. Those doors on the front, this is Washington Street near 7th Avenue. Those were shattered last night. Phoenix Police have absolutely no intention of allowing that to happen again tonight. There are dozens of police officers in riot gear out there. We're talking shields, masks. They've already fired some tear gas. You can still smell it in the air. Now to their left, as they're facing us on the other side of Washington, you have dozens and dozens of protesters. Most of them have their hands up. They're chanting, "Hands up, don't shoot." They have been asked several times via a loudspeaker to disperse and to disperse immediately. So far, they've chosen not to. So that situation continues to evolve. Right now, you have a set of metal barricades that are dividing the protesters and the police and the street from police headquarters. And right now, you have nobody crossing over any of the barriers. Now, when the flashbang grenades and when the tear gas was used earlier, apparently some of the protesters had tried to shake the barriers, and they were dangerously close to making contact with the police officers on the other side. That's when the bullhorn came out. That's when they said you need to disperse immediately. That's also when they fired the flashbang grenades as well as the tear gas. Now, the tear gas in the air has dissipated right now. You can't even really smell it, but earlier it was definitely something that was causing you to choke a little bit. It was causing your eyes to burn a little bit, and that was just the beginning. Right now, this crowd is not dispersing. You can have to imagine that the Phoenix police, if they do not disperse or if they continue to come near the headquarters and try to vandalize it again, as happened last night, that they are at risk of seeing more flashbangs and more tear gas. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Mitch, thanks so much. We're going to take some more images.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to head out to Mitch Carr. Mitch Carr is out at Phoenix PD. Mitch, what is the latest happening where you are?
The situation continues to evolve right here on Washington. We're at 7th and Washington. We're on the west side of the police department headquarters, and this is PD headquarters right here behind me. You can see now very clearly the heavily armed and the riot-geared police that are standing in front of headquarters. Again, the front doors and the front windows of headquarters here behind me were smashed as of this morning. Now, they've replaced them with new doors. There are now dozens and dozens of police officers standing in front, and you've also got officers on the other side of the doors ready just in case anybody should break through this line. The danger here, somebody just threw a bottle. Somebody threw a bottle from the crowd into these officers. Now that's the Phoenix Police Department right now that is saying, this is the Phoenix Police Department, you must disperse. If you look on the east side of the headquarters, on the opposite side from us, you can see that up against that barricade, there is a very thick crowd. And the further east you go, the further down Washington that you go, is the thicker the crowd gets. And that's where one of the bottles came from. And that's exactly what triggered before the flashbangs and the tear gas to be shot out before, is that there were folks that were getting too close to the barriers, too close to the police officers there, and they decided to back them up. Now, all of those people that had dispersed a little bit because of the tear gas and the flashbangs, they have all since come back. They're chanting a variety of things, anything from Black Lives Matter to kneel for Dion. The folks that are in front right now that are kneeling with their fists in the air, they said they're kneeling for Dion Johnson. He was the center of the demonstration that happened earlier today. He was a man that was shot and killed by DPS troopers early Monday morning. So this situation seems to be ebbing and flowing, if you will. You have some sort of dispersal, you have people walking away, then you have them coming back and getting a little bit more bold. And so if you continue to watch this situation, I'm sure it will continue to ebb and flow like that. We're still on the scene. We're going to keep an eye on this. But for right now, we're going to send it back to the studio.
All right, Mitch, thank you so much. And we're going to give you another overhead look there from Sky 12. And Mitch just mentioned it a minute ago that this protest originally started at East Lake Park. And things like this can go from being very peaceful to some people getting very aggressive and the police having to respond to that. So now we are going to go back out to Mitch. Mitch, the last time we talked to you, you saw a bottle being thrown towards police officers, and they were having to respond a little bit more aggressively. What's happening now?
We've got a little bit of an escalation and tensions happening right here in front of the police headquarters. We've seen now 2 bottles that have been thrown from the crowd into those police officers. Now, in response to that, we saw the police officers put on their gas masks. That could be an indication that we're going to see, as another bottle has been thrown into the crowd, that could be an indication that we might see more tear gas coming. And there's another bottle thrown. It looks like the crowd is getting a little bit more restless right now. But the Phoenix police officer is preparing for something. You can see these officers that are behind look like they're about to put their gas masks on. I think I can see a tear gas gun. It looks like the police are moving forward now against this barricade. Protesters look to be moving back a little bit. The Phoenix Police Department earlier, in response to a couple of bottles that were thrown, said, "Keep it peaceful, folks," and the bottles continue to be thrown. They are continuing to ask this crowd to disperse. The crowd is not dispersing. We're keeping an eye on this situation right now. Send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Mitch, I can hear law enforcement over a loudspeaker. What are they saying to the crowd?
Hey, we got middle fingers. We got middle fingers.
Guys, can Mitch hear me?
We have shifted our position right now. We were on the west side of police headquarters. Now we are on the east side. This is 6th Avenue in Washington where I'm standing. And this is also a place where you can see very clearly the riot gear that the police are wearing. If you look behind me, this is the space between the police barricade up front and the actual police department. We have still seen about a dozen bottles that have been thrown in there and some rocks. There were some police personnel that came out to deliver water bottles in a cooler, and something hard was thrown at them. I can't necessarily say if it was a rock or a bottle, but they had to go scurrying back inside because they were almost under attack from things being thrown from the crowd. Now, not everybody is violent. Most of the people here seem to be very peaceful. If you look over here to my right, there is a group of protesters that has Black Lives Matter sign. They are chanting "No justice, no peace," Black Lives Matter. They're sitting. There is nothing flying from this direction. Mainly it's the folks that are in front of the east side of the police department. That's where we've seen most of these bottles be thrown from. So right now, this situation, it actually looks like this crowd might be thinning out a little. Maybe the heat is getting to some of the protesters because it's very hot out here. But I did see somebody come by with water bottles, and I thought, what a great thing, you know? It's incredibly hot out here. The protesters have started throwing those bottles at the police officers, and so that's what we're seeing right now. We actually have some protesters that are off camera right now that are very angry with us, so we're going to toss it back to you.
No throwing objects, please. Keep it peaceful.
Here we go. Here we go.
This is the Phoenix Police Department. Please disperse immediately.
Oh!
Police Department.
See this to your left? Right now, this has just been declared an unlawful assembly. What happened was there was a deluge of bottles and other objects being thrown from the crowd. And if you can see this officer right here who's holding the orange shotgun, he was actually hit in the face by a water bottle. The water bottle exploded on him. Shortly after that, the police opened fire with flashbangs and other very loud firings into the crowd. They have just decided this new recording is not saying please disperse. This is saying that this is now an unlawful assembly and that all of these folks need to leave. Now, a lot of the protesters did scatter after the firing started, but you can still see bottles being thrown into the crowd. These officers look like they may be crossing this barrier any minute now. What we have right now, again, is a loudspeaker playing that this is an unlawful assembly and that everybody here needs to disperse. Once the police decide that this is unsafe, then that means that everybody needs to disperse, and that means that they can then begin arresting people. So you have to assume that if they're declaring this an unlawful assembly right now, that they might soon be heading into the crowd to arrest people. I am. We've got an officer with us right now, but more importantly, these officers are currently staying behind the barricade. Because this is an unlawful assembly, they may cross the barricade any minute now. We are keeping an eye on this situation. We're going to send it back to the studio. Oh, it's pepper spray. Do you have goggles? You might want to put your goggles on. No, you got them, you got them. We have an escalation of things on the side of the Phoenix Police Department right now. This has just been declared an unlawful assembly. I've seen officers that are carrying pepper spray right now. We've seen officers that have what look like paintball guns, and what's most likely inside those guns is pepper balls. Those are pepper spray filled balls. They look like paintballs, but when they hit something, they explode. They end up with pepper spray all over whatever they've exploded upon. Again, this has been declared an unlawful assembly, so it looks like police are preparing to move out and into this crowd to eventually disperse it. You can also see officers right over here in gas masks and full tactical gear. I'm not exactly sure what they're waiting for, but it looks like the situation is deteriorating right here on Washington, right in front of the police department. We're going to send it back to the studio now as we keep an eye on things and exactly how things escalate. So right now, again, this has been declared an unlawful assembly. They've been announcing this in a couple of different languages. If you look over to my left, the crowd that was over here has very much dispersed, although those protesters that left seem to be coming back. We're going to take a walk around to the west. This is the front of the police department. And what we're seeing right now, you've got these uniformed police officers with riot shields. They've got shotgun shells that are firing blanks, but they're very loud, designed to disperse the crowd. Some of the police officers over here have gas masks on. Keep coming with me, Philip. If you come around the front, though, this is the real problem. Again, this has been declared an unlawful assembly, but all of these people are still here. If this continues to be an unlawful assembly, then the police will eventually go and clear those people, and they don't look like they're going anywhere at this point. So that's what we're waiting for. It looks like there is the potential for things to continue to escalate here, but we're still keeping an eye on this situation, even as they give these protesters every opportunity to leave if they can. I'm not sure if you can hear me right now, but we're going to send it back to the studio.
All right, Mitch. Yeah, we can definitely hear you right now. We're going to go back to some pictures from above in the middle of that protest as police officers use more aggressive tactics there to try to disperse this crowd. It is now an unlawful assembly. It has been so for over an hour now as they've tried to get this crowd to break up. We're going to head over to Mitch Carr. He's been at another location with these same protesters. He's also seeing things escalate in his area just over the last couple of hours. We're going to check back in with Mitch right now. Mitch, what does it look like there?
So what we have going on right now at Washington and 7th Avenue is you have protesters firing Roman candles. Essentially, they are taking fireworks and shooting them back at the police. Now, the police set off their flashbangs, their pepper grenades, what have you, right in front of the police headquarters on Washington. That was able to disperse the crowd along Washington, but all the folks did was move west down Washington, now to the other side of 7th Avenue. And now, as the smoke clears, they're continuing to go, they're going to go back. It looks like these folks are going back in front of the barricades, in front of the police. They're a little bit afraid to go past 7th Avenue, all the way in front of Washington, and the police are remaining behind their barricades. But this has become certainly a more antagonistic situation as the more fireworks, you might say, that the police are using, you actually have protesters using literal fireworks, firing them back at police. Now, they are not really coming close to hitting any of the police officers. In fact, most of these Roman candles are actually exploding well before they reach anything. We just heard an explosion to the east of the headquarters, and as you were well aware, there were folks that were out on Washington, both on the west side of police headquarters and on the east side, and it looks like police are now clearing the east side. So that would be 6th Avenue toward 5th Avenue. You can hear police are still firing. These are essentially shotgun pellets that are blanks, so they function as flashbang grenades. They're just loud, and they're designed to get your attention and hopefully ask you to comply. So right now, I've got a mask on and I've got goggles on because you can still smell and feel the pepper spray in the air. It's very thick. We saw a protester earlier who came over to talk to me who said he had been shot with a rubber pellet. So it looks like all of the tricks that the Phoenix police officers have to help disperse this crowd and hopefully get these folks home peacefully without having to make any arrests, they're using them right now. But you can see protesters with flags. You can see protesters wearing masks. We just heard a loud siren from the police department from in front of it, and more explosions now down Washington. It looks like the police are now headed down Washington with a vehicle as they chase protesters to the east. We've got protesters moving south down 7th Avenue right now in front of us. It looks like they are dispersing as we speak. So this situation may be close to coming to an end because it looks like these folks are headed out. We're not 100% sure, but right now this looks like what the Phoenix police wanted when they started all of this with the fireworks and the flashbangs and the smoke, is to get these folks to disperse. And at least from in front of the police department, it looks like they are dispersing right now. And police that have been stationed closed off Jefferson and 7th Avenue, they are letting these folks walk past them. We're going to keep an eye on this to see if there are any interactions between these protesters and the police that have these streets closed off. But for right now, it looks like at least in front of police headquarters on Washington that things are calming down. Although if you look to the east, you can see that police officers are now moving on the other side of the barricade down Washington. It looks like they're moving east to the street. They're on Washington now. You can see them with their shields. They're actually moving back west toward us as they head towards 7th Avenue. And here's a wall of police in riot gear with riot shields that are moving toward us as they look to clear the street. And again, most of the protesters are now headed south on 7th Avenue, and they're taking a left and going east on Jefferson. I'm not sure if this protest is ending or simply moving, but right now the situation is very fluid. We're going to send it back to the studio as we try to keep an eye on this.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mitch. And of course, this is night 2 of protests happening here in Phoenix yesterday to use some more aggressive means to try to get this crowd to disperse. All right, we're going to head back out to Mitch Carr. And Mitch, how have things changed since the last time we saw you?
Things are a lot calmer than they were even just 2 minutes ago, Caribe. If you look behind me, again, this is Washington and 7th Avenue. Police have fanned out from behind the barricades. They were just in front of the barricades, just in front of the police department. Now they've fanned out. They're on either side of the police department, on 7th Avenue and along 6th Avenue to the east. And right now they're stationary. They're not moving. And you have a lot fewer people that are standing around doing anything. The majority of the protesters went south on 7th Avenue and then headed east on Jefferson. And it looks like this crowd has dispersed for the time being. The police are not pursuing them any further. They declared this a lawful assembly over an hour ago. There was threats that they would eventually clear the area if people did not clear it on their own. And they ended up doing that. They shot off, again, these shotgun shells that function as flashbang grenades. They're very loud. There were pepper balls that were shot. There were rubber pellets that were shot. And there were also, there was a smoke bomb of some sort of acrid gas. I couldn't tell you exactly if it's a pepper gas or if it's tear gas or CS gas, whatever the case may be. I know it was incredibly unpleasant. We had a protester run by us and he was actually vomiting. I know that's terrible to hear, but that is exactly what this stuff does to you, and that is why police use it to get people to move, because it's incredibly effective. So right now it looks like this scene for now is very secure. And we're going to send it back to you. We're going to keep an eye on it to see if it remains secure.
All right. Yeah, you're looking at some Sky 12 images, and we just saw a group of protesters. There's a guy right there jumping on the window. It looks like they have used something to break the glass of a building there. So
Monroe, this is Chase Tower right behind me, and as that crowd that Bianca is following moved through and moved east, look at the damage they left behind. This is the front door to the Chase Bank that is on the ground floor of this building. They shattered the windows, and you can't see it right now, but behind those plants there is a trash can that's completely overturned, and it looks like somebody picked up the trash can, threw it through the window, and they broke not only the initial door that you go through, but the inner doors that you would go into to go into the bank. There are also planters on the other side of this wall that you can't see. Those have been overturned, and I don't know how they did this, but if you look up, the third window is up. You've got a window on the corner that is shattered, and then as you go about 3/4 of the way down the building, you've got more windows that are shattered. So we have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows down here that are broken, 6 pieces of glass, and we also have 3 more here. Now, Philip, turn around to your right. We have the Phoenix police that is coming back crossing First Street right now. It looks like they have either been relieved or the action is over down there, but we're watching the Phoenix police as they head back to headquarters. Again, this is First Street and Monroe, where the vandals have already moved through and done some damage to the Chase Tower here. And now, again, we are watching the Phoenix police move back through as they are on their way back from following that crowd east down the street. Caribe, going to send it back to you now.
all right, Mitch, thank you so much for that reporting there down there on the ground. And again, you're looking at live images of a protest that started out peaceful, and then several hours later, now 6 hours into this, has now turned into police having to use tear gas and pepper spray and rubber bullets to get the crowd to disperse in what now they have determined an unlawful assembly. You've seen the video of